Well, let's start with a brief background to get everyone kind of up to speed. And I'm not going to go overly in depth, just kind of the highlights. So, in the comic book world, the X-Men and the Avengers are owned by Marvel and Disney. But the movie rights to the X-Men, they're owned by Fox, which is why you never had an opportunity between Wolverine and Captain America teaming up, or Iron Man. It was contractually impossible. Now, within the last year, Fox has sold all its movie rights to Disney. So now you can have the X-Men and the Avengers characters in the same movie. The problem is, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been pretty well established and quite successful, but has never once mentioned the existence of mutants or the X-Men, for obvious reasons. So how do we cram the X-Men into the MCU? Some people suggested a multiverse theory. The Fox version of the X-Men would simply pop up in the MCU. But one of the key components of what makes the X-Men tick is that they are hated and feared. X-Men just showing up ready to save the world doesn't exactly make people afraid. What would make people afraid is knowing that mutants are the next step in evolution. Or another way to look at it is they are superior to humans, but you can really only do that through a slow build-up. Also, using the multiverse as a way to get the X-Men in the same universe can be very confusing to your average moviegoer. Some people suggested they just start showing up, like what happened with Spider-Man, with no real explanation. But if you do that, then you're taking away the rich history of the X-Men. Wolverine fighting with Captain America, for example, in World War II. So the best solution for getting the X-Men in the MCU would be this. In the MCU, around, say, the 1980s, something happens that is so bad that Charles Xavier has no choice but to wipe the memories of mutants from the minds of everyone on the planet. Which could be done through the use of, say, like Cerebro. You could show people around the world hypnotically burning books about mutants, erasing files that would exist at the time, and even most of the mutants themselves wouldn't have any knowledge, and possibly they would have their powers suppressed. Now, when I say something happens, I leave that something up to you to think about. My idea would be to have a character like Namor create a tsunami that destroys a city. That, I believe, would tick people off enough to hate and possibly want to kill mutants. In which case, Xavier would simply say nope, and then there goes everyone's memory. And you could get someone like the Ancient One from the Doctor Strange movie. You get that person involved to help Xavier wipe everyone's memory. That way you sort of incorporate the existence of unknown interactions between the X-Men characters and MCU characters. Now, would Xavier actually do something like this? Is this really part of his character? Well, yeah. He's been established for decades that he's kind of an elitist dick. And let's be honest, he's kind of a Nazi if you think about it. He has a shaved head, hangs with a lot of white people in hoods and masks. He doesn't like Magneto. Maybe it's because he's Jewish. I don't know. I'm just saying it's another problem for another episode. So yeah, he'd totally do that. However, you do have some problems that pop up with this. What do you do about a character like Rogue or Cyclops who can't control their powers? For certain characters, I'd say Xavier would try to quietly recruit and take care of certain mutants in his school for the gifted. Most other mutants, I think, would blend in fine, but what do you do about a character like Nightcrawler, who looks like a blue elf? I would say the best thing for the MCU to do, and to differentiate from Fox's X-Men, is to limit the population of mutants. I'll say around 198. This would also limit the number of mutants that have standout traits. That way, if you saw a newspaper with Nightcrawler's face on it, you would assume it's fake, like looking at Batboy from the Weekly World News. You think it's just makeup or some sort of mask. Also, I think the memory wipe is a good idea or a good way to go because it stirs up a lot of drama, which makes for good X-Men stories. If someone tampered with your memory without your permission, you'd probably be pretty pissed off. On top of that, there's a little social psychology going on as well. The X-Men characters represent outsiders, minority groups, generally people who don't fit into society very easy. So to have someone, for lack of a better term, put everyone back in the closet, that's going to be a huge problem for a lot of X-Men characters, and hopefully create some great character and storytelling moments. Now, obviously, at some point, everyone needs to regain their memory. So again, something would need to happen in the present. You can try and come up with your own idea. My thinking would be to have Wolverine wake up from stasis in an abandoned Weapon Plus facility where he gained his adamantium skeleton. Now, I'm assuming Xavier wouldn't be able to wipe the memories of an unconscious person. So you could very well have a movie where Wolverine is coming from a really, really dark place, trying to find the SHIELD organization or anyone that recognizes him. Eventually, he would find Xavier and maybe not so politely ask that he restores everyone's memories. That's pretty much it. But I'll throw in some bonus problems that we can solve as well. How do we get Deadpool in the MCU? That you can use the multiverse angle. You got to figure hanging out with Cable, who's a time traveler, gives the franchise an easier explanation to show up in another universe. Plus, you could have Deadpool 3 all about his universe collapsing and show him failing miserably to try and stop it. Another problem, how do you get the Fantastic Four in the MCU? I would end Black Panther 2 with the spaceship crashing down on Wakanda. Fantastic Four come out, establish briefly that Reed Richards and the Black Panther had a previous friendship, mention how they've been gone for and unheard of for about 15 years, then ended with Reed Richards saying Galactus is coming. Everyone in the audience will need to change their pants. And last thing, how do you explain Magneto's age? He would have to be 90 in order to have his background in World War II. My thinking has always been, if mutants are the next step in human evolution, then wouldn't they live longer than a human? Wouldn't they age slower? I would assume the life expectancy would probably double. So a 90-year-old Magneto would be like a 45-year-old human. And that's all I got for this one. If you're listening to us on YouTube, leave a comment, subscribe, check out the podcast for full episodes. Just kind of do something.